How could a large passenger jet carrying 239 people simply vanish into thin air? In today's modern world of satellites, GPS, and radar, that seems impossible. Yet that's exactly what happened on March 8, 2014, with Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Since then, countless theories have emerged trying to explain the mystery. Some suggest the plane was hijacked remotely. Others claim there was a catastrophic event in the cargo hold. Everything from lithium batteries to even something as unlikely as exploding fruit has been blamed. But the truth may be even more unsettling. What if someone on board Flight 370 was directly responsible? This is the story of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a story that may one day help us uncover what really happened to the missing plane. On the night of March 7, 2014, at 11:40 p.m., the skies over Kuala Lumpur were clear as the monsoon season drew to a close. The air was calm, the stars visible, a perfect night for flying. At Gate C of the satellite terminal at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 stood ready for its 6-hour journey to Beijing. Ground crews worked efficiently, refueling the aircraft, loading meals and cargo, and preparing to receive 227 passengers. Families, business travelers, and tourists filed onto the plane, unaware they were stepping into what would become aviation's greatest mystery. Among all the theories surrounding the flight, one particular scenario has stood out and been widely debated. For the first time, this documentary presents that version of events in full detail. In the cockpit of MH370 sat two men who, in the days that followed, would become the focus of worldwide scrutiny. The co-pilot, 27-year-old Fariq Abdul Hamid, was about to complete a milestone. This flight was his final training run before being fully certified to fly the Boeing 777. Having joined Malaysia Airlines as a cadet pilot in 2007, he had already flown the Boeing 737 and Airbus A330. Months earlier, he had begun training on the 777, and his performance had been rated well above average. To Fariq, this was more than just another flight. It was the final step in his journey to becoming a fully qualified airline pilot. Beside him was the captain, 53-year-old Zaharieh Ahmad Shah, one of Malaysia's most seasoned aviators. With more than 18,000 flight hours since joining the airline in 1981, Zaharieh was not just experienced, he was respected as a mentor. He had trained and assessed countless other pilots, deciding who was qualified to fly. Colleagues described him as witty, deeply knowledgeable, and a man who lived and breathed aviation. His passion extended beyond the cockpit. He built and flew remote control planes, paraglided in his spare time, and even hosted colleagues at his home to practice on his personal flight simulator. But as the world would later learn, there may have been far more to Zaharieh than met the eye. Shortly after midnight, at 12:30 a.m., the enormous aircraft was pushed back from the gate, 8 minutes ahead of schedule. At that moment, the plane became a sealed world of its own, disconnected from the outside. On board were 227 passengers, 12 crew members, and 49 metric tons of fuel. Some later speculated that Zaharieh had taken on an unusually large amount of fuel, calling it suspicious. But the truth was simpler. Malaysia Airlines required all flights to Beijing to carry an additional 30 minutes of reserve fuel. What seemed unusual was, in fact, standard procedure. As the Boeing 777 began to taxi toward runway 32R, Zaharieh handled the ground controls while Fariq managed the radio. In Malaysia, this was standard practice. The captain steered the plane on the ground, while the co-pilot took control for takeoff and the flight itself. By 12:40 a.m., the plane was lined up on the runway. Ahead stretched 4 kilometers of concrete and the vast blackness of the night sky. Zaharieh advanced the Rolls-Royce engines to full power and handed the controls to Fariq. Within moments, the massive aircraft was airborne, climbing steadily into the night. Flight 370's journey north had begun. As the aircraft gained altitude, Captain Zaharieh contacted Malaysian Departure Control. Clearance was given to climb to 18,000 feet, along with a shortcut directly to a navigation waypoint. But this was no ordinary waypoint. It sat at the intersection of 5 separate airspaces: Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Singapore. This strange geographical coincidence would later add another layer of mystery to the flight's disappearance. The aircraft continued to climb, leaving the glittering lights of Kuala Lumpur behind. According to plan, it would head northeast across the Malaysian peninsula and then out over the South China Sea. Air traffic control soon handed the flight over to Kuala Lumpur radar. Everything appeared routine. It was a calm, cloudless night. The plane was operating perfectly. The skies around them were quiet. By 12:46 a.m., just 20 minutes after takeoff, Flight 370 had reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Zahari delivered a routine position report to controllers. 6 minutes later, he repeated the same message, a report that didn't need to be repeated. Was it fatigue? A simple oversight? Or something else? For the passengers, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The cabin crew moved through the aisles serving meals. Some passengers watched movies, while most had already reclined their seats and drifted off to sleep. But beneath the calm, something was about to happen. Something that would ensure MH370 never reached Beijing. What followed would spark years of speculation, endless investigations, and fierce debate among experts, journalists, and families of the victims. In the rest of this series, we'll apply Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is often the most likely. The account you'll hear is not the final truth, but it is the version of events most consistent with the known evidence, and one supported by some of the world's leading aviation specialists.